Our next speaker is Ray Mohan, Massey Research Opportunity, and he's talking to us about the life cycle assessment of sheep. So Ray is a postgraduate student at Massey who this year is looking to do a comparative environmental impact analysis of sheep dairying at farm level. She is looking for some help with this work. I'd like to welcome Ray to the stage. Thank you.
Hi everyone. Sorry, just a bit. There you go. Hi everyone, my name is Ray Mohan and I'm a master's student at Massey University, currently supervised by Craig Pritchard with the School of Management and Eli Gray Stewart with the School of Engineering and Advanced Technology. So, yeah, it's not too clear. Anywho, so I'm here today to just introduce and provide a brief overview about our proposed project of conducting a life cycle assessment of the sheep dairy industry in New Zealand. Cool. So with discussions around bovine dairy in comparison to sheep dairy, the concept of sustainability often props up. Now, how exactly can we measure the environmental friendliness of sheep dairy in comparison to bovine? Now, there are existing research programs into effluent management. However, when it comes to considering all the energy and resource inputs and outputs of producing, let's say, a kg of milk powder or a litre of processed milk, it's pretty kind of hard to compare. So how exactly do we demonstrate the sustainable edge of this sheep dairy industry? And that's where the life cycle assessment process comes into play. So life cycle assessment, as it says here, is a way of evaluating resource use as well as measuring the environmental degradation. However, if you think about it as a form of systems analysis where it's you input all the data of fertilizer use or electricity usage in a farm into a modeling system, and the outputs enable you to determine where the environmental hotspots, as they term, so areas of the bigger carbon footprints are, as well as areas where you could look out for alternatives to reduce cost. So stages of an LCA, as it says here, you've got defining the goal and scope, which depending on when we're able to find a farm to work with, would be, hopefully by April. Inventory analysis, that's where you collect data sheets and input them to the GABI modeling system. Impact assessment, so that would be 4 categories that we consider, which will be later covered. And lastly, hopefully to produce a report which would be of use for farm managers. Now, I just wanted to add that in terms of life cycle assessments, they have been utilized in New Zealand for various agricultural industries, such as sheep and beef and also venison. However, there's yet to be one conducted for sheep dairy, as we know. So just recently in 2016, Ag Research produced one for Waikato dairy farms, so bovine dairy, and they looked at, I think, about 16 or so farms of various intensification levels as according to the Dairy NZ classification. So what we're really proposing to do is to work with a sheep dairy farm, generate some results, contrast that to the results that were given from the Waikato study, as well as overseas studies that have been done on sheep dairy. Cool, so how would we apply the LCA to a sheep farm? So this is a pretty brief overview of what we'll look at, but if I could sort of direct your attention to that bottom thing that says cradle to farm gate. So the Waikato study looked at just that section, however, we propose to look at that as well as the farm to primary processor gate, as we believe it will just, provide a more wholesome study as well as generate data which could be looked at for developing and growing the industry in the future. So for example, you just look at external feed and, cost of growing that and such, going down to pasture and internal, and looking at the various outputs of the farm and so on. So these 3 categories just break down what was shown in the previous slide. So as you can see, so you've got feed production, so that's your raw materials, your production, harvesting, and also the additional feed sources such as milk powder for feeding lambs. Animal production, so that's your it's still within that cradle to farm gate stage, but it accounts for breeding animals and also those used directly. Primary processing stage. So now that says just the primary milk processing factory, but depending on the farm's desires or what they'd like to include in scope of the study, that can be widened to include the wool/fiber processing as well as the processing of meat. Right, so the categories of the impact assessment, you've got here global warming potential, so that's carbon footprinting, and acidification, eutrophication, and non-renewable energy use. So an example of what the results would sort of look like are shown at the bottom, which was a study conducted in Italy for the sheep production there. And everything's done in according to a kg of fat and protein corrected milk. Ultimately, just to summarize, it has been done, however, it has not yet been done for New Zealand sheep dairy. And I guess the biggest reason of doing it is just that it's a way to demonstrate the sustainable edge of this industry, especially looking further down the processing line, including packaging or transport of goods to freight or retailers. It can be utilized for marketing and ultimately just offer better understanding of the energy requirements of the farm, as well as potential areas of cost reduction. Now, I think due to time constraints, if anyone's got any further questions or like more information, if you could see Craig Pritchard or myself afterwards, or alternatively contact us with our, email details are at the rear of the program. And that would be all. Thank you for your time.